Hello everyone, welcome to the Concern Podcast, where we unpack political, socio-economic and cultural stories shaping our world. I am Emmanuel Taban. Now last week, there was a high-level meeting convened in Juba, which included the presidency, and by saying the presidency, I meant President Salva Kiir Mayardit and all the four vice presidents. And also in that meeting were the top leadership of the signatories to the peace agreement, the former detainees, the South Sudan Opposition Alliance. That meeting was convened and the public was briefed about the outcome of that meeting by the minister in the office of the president. He came out and gave what that meeting was all about. And it was from that statement issued by the minister that the public got to learn that actually in that meeting, the presidency and the top leadership of the signatories to the peace agreement, excluding Machar, agreed that the country will have an elections next year in December. And that appears to be the stand of the government of the day and all the other signatories to the peace agreement. They seem to have agreed that the country is really going to go into an election next year in 2026 December without the permanent constitution, without the population census, and without reforms on institutions that are very important, even like the National Electoral Commission. And that seems to be the stand of the government. And when I look at why the government seems to be in rush for an election, when I analyze the desperation of the government to have an election done in 2026, next year, I try to think deep about it. And there are a couple of things, actually one thing mainly that stood out in my mind. And I was looking at one major thing, and that is about the master plan or the technical plan or the strategy to exclude one person from the ballot in 2026. That is the reason why, to me, the government seems to be rushing to have an elections done next year. And that person is none other than Riek Machar. That is my analysis about it. I'll give my reasons as to why my instincts are telling me about this. You know, with the ongoing trial of Machar and with the decision of the government to have an election held next year in December 2026, it's almost becoming very clear that the reason why the government is trying to rush, or the SPLM government is trying to rush to have an elections done next year, even when Machar is still under trial, is so that Machar can be excluded from the process or from the elections. And this is why I feel this is a strategy and this is how it's going to work. I'll explain to you. We all know that the trial of Machar that is ongoing right now seems to be taking long, and indeed it's taking long. We never know when this trial will end. Perhaps since we know that we're getting into a festive season, the courts might decide and say they're going for a break and they will resume next year after the festive season. And if we look at this trial until the time when the courts will come up with a verdict, so that we can know if Machar is convicted or declared guilty or not, it might take quite a long time. In fact, if we are to see right from the start of this, I mean, how long has it taken now? Nearly 2 months. So if we are to see this trial for Machar, it might take us another 3 or 4 months or so. And if this is indeed a plan that they want to exclude Machar from the election or from the ballot so he can participate in the election, we might see a deliberate move to prolong this trial. And as the trial would be ongoing, and we all know how elections are done, in every country, when elections are done, the electoral commissions always comes out with a roadmap, an election roadmap that portions days or months or weeks on how certain things are supposed to be done. For example, the electoral commissions comes out and have to do with maybe declaring certain dates as ones that those who are aspiring to be candidates can come out and collect nomination forms from the electoral commissions, and they can move around the country to collect signatures from across the country, and they take back these forms to the electoral commission for so that the electoral commission can find out the signature, so it can actually signal to them that these people have the trust of the people and the people are nominating them to be actually elected. So this might take some weeks. And also there is that moment where the electoral commission need to do clearance on all the candidates that are contesting for these positions, whether being a governor or a president or whatever position. So the electoral commission also need to clear them. And in that process, that is where the electoral commission needs to look in depth if these people meet the qualifications to be a candidate, if they have criminal records or no. And if we look at this, and also there is that period where they will have campaign period where all the candidates can traverse across the country to sell their manifesto. So when we look at all these arrangements and we see that maybe a deliberate move to prolong this process, so we are likely to see that Machar would be excluded from the electoral process. There is going to be one point where he would not be able to meet all these deadlines of the electoral commission because he is still under trial. And the government by then will have a very legal argument that since Machar is still under trial, he is not qualified to vie for the presidency. That would be the point. So when I see why the government is trying to rush to have an election that next year, or the SPLM in government trying to rush to have an election that next year, and then look at the ongoing trial of Machar and how long it's taking, then we can clearly see that this appears to be a tactical plan to exclude Machar from the ballot. So that by the time when the Electoral Commission maybe set deadlines and then Machar is still, the court has not produced a verdict about the trial, then he stands disqualified to to contest for the presidency. So this could be a tactical move that is being planted by the government of the day or by the SPLM in government, so that Machar wouldn't have the opportunity to actually run in these elections. See, so that is how I perceive this desperation of the SPLM in government to have an elections done next year. And sometimes when I think about it, is it really a move by the government that they really wants to have an election so that they can get rid of every problem that the country is facing? And if so, why do they want to go for an election without even a constitution? Why do they want to do that without population census? How are they going to know the number of people voting? So when you combine all these factors, the fact that the country doesn't have a permanent constitution, the fact that there is no population census conducted, and that the reforms of institutions, major institutions, are not done, and then you look at how the ongoing trial of Machar and his colleagues is still taking long, then you can easily almost see that there is a master plan, a game plan to exclude him tactically from the politics of the country. That's how I perceive this move. And also the fact that the country is heading towards an elections without a permanent constitution could be even another way to exclude him further, so that by the time when the government is established, is formed, they can establish a permanent constitution which exclude or take out, does not consider term limits or age limits, and that the more that is done, then the further more Machar is excluded, because if there are no term limits in the constitution, of course, the same president will serve over and over again, and someone like Machar will not get the opportunity even to come. As time passes, he will age, and then he become irrelevant in the politics of the country. And that is how tactically I feel Machar is being excluded from the politics of the country. Thank you so much. Tell us what you think about this. If you have the same feeling, if you have the same misgivings, Write down in the comment sections and tell us what you think about it. Until next time, I'm Emmanuel Taban, and this is the Concern Podcast.